Those Mets, you saw it all over social media. Mike Francesa having meltdowns. Not as bad as that bullpen for the New York Mets. As we said, Teddy, a fifth straight day, a fifth straight blown lead, setting one of those all-time records. The Mets shut out for 8 innings, Teddy. Strike for 3 in the ninth. They're going to get a winner. They bring in their high-priced closer, and it all goes kaput in a 5-run inning for the Phillies. 4 straight wins over the Mets by the Phillies. Meltdown in Manhattan.
Yeah, Mickey Callaway's quote, "They're all tough at the moment." Excuse me. This one stings the worst because it just happened. This is a game that we all felt we really needed to win. Again, we put ourselves in a position to do that, and we didn't get it done. When you talk about bullpen meltdowns, there's nothing more demoralizing for a team when you win a game for 8.5 innings and let it go. And the Mets did that, obviously, 4 different times in 4 days in Philadelphia. But the bigger betting story in this game is the total. It's 1-0 in the ninth, and you can't cash your under 9 ticket? That's as brutal as it gets. There's nothing less fun than an 8-run ninth inning when you've got the under, especially when it's a walk-off 3-run home run to end the ballgame. That's just brutal. That's as tough a push as you'll ever take.
Yeah, sometimes those pushes feel like a loss in that instance because, too, you're looking at the Phillies, who, I mean, not the greatest bullpen in the world, but they have a pretty good closer. He comes in, gets the first guy out, and then all heck breaks loose. And, yes, you end up pushing that 9, which is absolutely ridiculous. Take a look at another game. How about this big price tag, Teddy? Houston holds a minus 205 price tag, and they end up getting shellacked 10-0 by those Pittsburgh Pirates. And how about this, Teddy? Astros now losers of 9 of 11, even though they do have 3 starters heading into the Major League Baseball All-Star game. Former Astros player Joe Musgrove cruises through 6 innings, an 8-0 lead, an easy win for those Buccos, Teddy.
The Astros are now 2-9 in their last 11 ball games. All right, this team is ice cold, and they're laying $2, $2.50, $3 every day. I'm not going to necessarily compare it to what we saw. I mean, the one that always stands out to me is when the Red Sox went, 7-20 in September of 2011. They were minus 250 and minus $3, and you bet against the Red Sox that entire month as they blew that 9-game lead in the AL East, and you made a fortune doing so. Betting against the Astros right now, done pretty well for yourself over the course of the last couple of weeks. Houston's too good to be this bad for this long. But when a team's not getting clutch hits and their pitching isn't what it was a few weeks ago and things are going south before the All-Star break, I'm not excited about laying any price with the Astros right about now.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that too, Teddy, is as you're looking and say, you know what, the lineup that they had out there for the past, 30, 45 days without Altuve's of the world, without the George Springers of the world, they were hitting, they were winning, and now these guys come back, taking a little bit to assimilate them back in. Still not without shortstop Carlos Correa. We'll see when he gets back in. But, hey, everybody's going to have some of these swoons here, especially in a June swoon. We'll see after the All-Star break if they can ramp it up. How about this one, Teddy? We previewed it a little bit yesterday. 2 games across seas in London that are going to take place. And the number one question that we had is, you know what? How's the game going to play out there? Betting-wise, can you get an edge in this series? Taking a look at the field dimensions, Teddy, pretty short here. 330 down both lines and a short center field of 385, which they're going to try to combat by putting a 16-foot wall in center field. Now, the interesting thing about this is we take a look in the United States, as we call hitting weather, hot, muggy on the East Coast, especially in New York, with Baltimore, with the Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Mets. But you go over there, you think you get a little bit of a reprieve. But how about this, Teddy? Over 90 degrees set for Saturday's game here at first pitch.
Yeah, exactly. So you have short dimensions for the field, even with a high fence, a 16-foot fence around it, and hot and humid conditions in a place that normally isn't particularly hot or humid. You talk about London in the summer, it's supposed to be cool and rainy. Well, not for these games. Definitely worth noting. And, of course, my favorite thing about these series in London is the mascot race. Henry VIII, Winston Churchill, Freddie Mercury, and Nessie. That's what they got in the UK. We don't have mascots like that in the USA.
Yeah, forget about that, Teddy. You have the race down in Washington with the presidents, and you have the sausage race. But getting Freddie Mercury into this race, kind of impressive there. Talk about one interesting thing here, Teddy, because when we look at a game in Oakland, not a great hitter's ballpark, but you do have the extra foul ground, which might steal an out or two. I noticed in this game in some of the write-ups here, there's actually 4,000 square feet more of foul ground in this ballpark than any major league ballpark, including Oakland. Do you think that might play into a factor? Because the one thing we haven't seen yet, Teddy, from an odds maker perspective, I don't have anything up on my docket here that says what maybe the total or the side would be in this game, but that's kind of an interesting element there where normal foul balls reaching the bleachers, maybe you steal an out or two there if you're looking to take an under.
Yeah, you probably could. The question is, how do you quantify that? You know, I mean, in theory, you're supposed to probably get an extra out or two in a 54-out ball game based on the fact that all of a sudden there's a lot more foul ground to track down foul balls with. That is real. But how do you quantify it? How do you put that, all right, it's worth this much of a run? Not necessarily easy to do for the markets, which means maybe there's some value here. Let's see what the total is. I'm fascinated to see how they price this series.
Yeah, Teddy, from a betting perspective here, because I'm more cautious. Like, I don't like to bet into the unknown of what's going to take place. Because even you saw earlier, like Tanaka out on the mound, you know, trying to throw some warm-up pitches to get a feel for the surroundings, because there is going to be 66,000 people there. And again, it's out of the creatures of habit where you're flying the cities you're used to. You're flying the hotels that you're used to. Now you're going out of your element, playing in a different environment. Is this more of a wait-and-see approach, or there's guys out here that'll fire on value if they see perceived value?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our goal as handicappers is to find these little edges. What do? The whole purpose of this show, the whole purpose of my existence as a handicapper is finding little edges. And little edges over time will pay off. That's what we do. So is this an edge? You know, with the extra foul ground, maybe, but is that edge mitigated by the fact that it's a short field and it's going to be super hot and humid? It's not an easy answer. And that means for me, probably, I mean, again, let's see what the markets do, but I'm not necessarily going to be in a rush to bet the first game of the series. Let's see how it plays. We'll watch it and see if there are any opportunities for the second.
No, you know what the best thing I do like about the show, Teddy, because information, as we always like to say, is king in this environment. No doubt about it. Somebody's going to watch the show and be like, you know what? I had no idea that they were over in London playing in a different environment there. So at least if we got that across to you there, where you could take a step back and say, you know what? Let me reevaluate the game. That's the whole goal of the show here for us. Top 20 college football, Teddy. We can't stop on this. We're getting in every single day to opening kickoff here at sportsbookreview.com right here on that betting show. Who are we going to take a look? Another Big Ten team. Seems like we're going through the entire Big Ten at this point. The Michigan State team football preview for 2019. How about this? A 200-1 ticket to win the 2019 NCAA title. Spartans team total set at 7.5. This is a team, Teddy, last year that had an 8-4 record, 5-4 in the Big Ten. Mark D'Antonio is back for his 13th season. Racked up 3 Big Ten titles over those years. And we're taking a look. The key to this team, Teddy, we're talking about returning starters on both sides of the ball. You're going to get your quarterback back. You're going to get your leading rusher back. You're going to get your top 2 pass receivers back and a pretty good defense. 7.5. Just looking at that total without even looking at the schedule, you scratch your head and be like, kind of interesting here, but also a 200-1 ticket, not giving them much of a chance to win it all. It should be an interesting one. They can get out fast out of the gate, Teddy, when we take a look at some of the teams they have. Tulsa at home, Western Michigan at home, Arizona State at home before they get into their Big Ten play. Michigan State, 2019, Teddy.
Well, look, I mean, Mark D'Antonio has been a bet-on head coach from day one in Sparty land. All right, up in East Lansing, they won. Prior to last year, they'd had double-digit win seasons 4 times in the last 5 years. Michigan State's 85 wins since 2010, number 11 among Power 5 conference teams during that span, 3rd in the Big Ten during that span. But last year was a disaster. And by a disaster for Michigan State, that's an 8-win season. All right, this program has high expectations. That's why we're talking about them in a top 20 preview prior to the campaign. 10 different offensive starters got hurt last year. They missed a combined 48 games, and Michigan State ended up the season with the number 117th ranked offense. Now, D'Antoni's always been a defense guy, but this offense last year, they couldn't run, they couldn't throw, they couldn't score points. You know, Lewerke suffered that shoulder injury at Penn State in week 6. And the Spartans ended up scoring 7 points or fewer in 4 of their last 7 games. Lewerke played through pain during that span, but now he's supposed to be healthy for his senior year. 7 offensive linemen with starting experience return. Again, a team that didn't really have a whole lot of strength up front last year. They've at least got guys with starting experience. They have a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive line coach. And, of course, when you look at this defense, the defense is going to be capable of keeping them in games. You know, they're number one in the country in rush defense last year. Their defensive tackles in Panusiak and Williams are dynamite. You know, the defensive end, Willicks could have gone to the NFL. He ended up breaking his leg, so they get him back. You know, he led the Big Ten in tackles for loss last year. Defense is loaded. Special teams look really good, too. You know, the kick, and this is something that we don't talk about a lot in college football, and we should talk about it a little bit more. The teams that can punt well and kick field goals have an edge, especially with all the short line games that we see a team like Michigan State in. They got a great kicker and a great punter. Their punter, a senior now in his 6th season, he suffered a broken leg last year. He's got a 42-yard average. So the fundamentals should be there for Sparty. They're not a sexy team. They're good on defense. Wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State makes their backers a fair bit of money once again in 2019, even though the Michigan Wolverines in Ann Arbor tend to attract more of the spotlight in the Jim Harbaugh era.